This is Marketing Uncomplicated. Welcome back to the show, guys. With over 20 years of experience in live experts, Hallie Seltzer is an expert in end-to-end event productions, campaign strategy, and creative direction. She has worked with some of the world's most iconic brands, including Google, Netflix, Instacart, Feeding America, Boys and Girls Club, Democratic Conventions 2016, and GLAAD, and Squarespace. Ooh, I'm out of breath there almost, but those are some amazing names, and we're going to dig into some of the details around that. Turning big ideas into meaningful experiences, Hallie found Pinpoint Productions in 2015 to fill a gap she saw in the event industry, helping influential brands and organizations not only make meaning through events, but do so guided by values of true partnership, respect, and consideration of every community. Community is a huge conversation, guys. And this is one of the biggest things that Hallie and I are going to dig into. Today, Pinpoint Productions is proud to serve as strategic partners to some of the world's most impactful brands, combining creativity and strategic vision with production excellence and genuine care. Welcome to the show. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So I want to just take 2 minutes and say, tell us what you tell people exactly that you do, because obviously there was a gap in the market as to why you started Pinpoint Production. So how do you differentiate yourself when people are like, oh, you do event marketing, but why, and why is it different?
So I think the thing that sets us apart and where I thought there was a gap and why Pinpoint started was I think a lot of times event agencies, their job is to make things pretty, functional, bring kind of folks there, and they're taking direction from their clients. And sometimes the strategy behind why we're doing an event, why we're going to a place was missing.
Yeah.
And what we bring is strategy first. You can't build an event, I think, a successful event without thinking about the whys and asking a lot of questions and making sure that our clients are aware of, why are they going there to begin with, and who's our audience, and what's the message that we're trying to send? Does that message resonate with the place that we're going and the people that are in the room? So I think that was really the impetus, was wanting to make sure that clients, had someone who could kind of push back a little and say, does this actually make sense? And I think sometimes smaller agencies have a better ability to do that than larger agencies. In a lot of ways, we can kind of be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in a way that larger agencies can't.
I love that. And I love that, you aren't the enterprise agency for events connecting with enterprise clients. And I think that there is a lot more of a differentiation from a smaller agency working with larger clients. And it's almost the difference between how you serve, or are you serving, or do you serve your client? And it's like, you seem to be serving in terms of going 150% over.
Definitely. And I think a lot of what we hear, and we are a small agency, just by structure, but we're really seen as an extension of a team, which gives us, I think, a little bit more autonomy in terms of making sure that we're not just yes people, that we can actually say the things that we're thinking. And I think we've earned the credibility with our clients by usually just making sure that the number one thing we're thinking about is the end audience. So we think of basically our clients are multiple. It's our client, of course, who's hiring us, who's writing the purchase order, but it's also who are we seeing, because we see them as our clients almost more. Yeah. If we care about the audience first, I think it all really cycles back in a really warm and positive way to the clients.
Yeah. And I want to actually kind of pin something in that, where you're like, we're not only just yes, because for you to compete with larger agencies that are supporting the enterprise companies, there is a lot more respect when you say, I think we should do it this way, because it's not that, okay, here's the criteria, you send them over a scope of work, this is everything that we're going to do for you, but what is really beyond that? And I think that that's really, as you're saying, what really sets you guys apart and allows you to penetrate into that market and compete with the bigger guys in the ocean.
Definitely. And I'd say it took time for sure. We're now, Pinpoint will hit 10 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And it's taken some time to actually feel like it's okay to do that, especially with the big companies of the world, where you're like, why are they going to listen to me when they have their own creative folks? But even just this week, we had a client who was doing an event in California. I'll leave the name of the client out. And we're doing an event related to the wildfires. It was going to be a big,
amazing
launch.
Yeah.
But the message wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so we pushed back to the point where we actually canceled the event. And the event is now being pushed 2 weeks from today, because I was like, this doesn't tie together. This doesn't actually like impact the way that you want it to impact. And they listened. And thankfully,
Wow.
like now we have an event I think that's going to be really successful because it was given some serious thought behind, what are we actually saying? Who are we, who is this actually supporting?
Yeah.
Versus just having a press moment.
Yeah, well done. I mean, especially for an event that really, hits home for a lot of people, and you don't want to come out, just to your point, being just a press release that eventually then goes away, but what are you actually impacting through this type of event
I think also people can really sniff out
today?
authenticity.
Yeah.
And last thing you want to do is be inauthentic when you're dealing with something so important.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, because you've been in business for about 10 years now, and you guys were obviously operating pre-COVID. Not that we want to resurface, pre and post-COVID anymore, but it's really an interesting point and a differentiation as it relates to how, not necessarily clients, but how, maybe the event goers, have changed from the standpoint of really choosing what they're going to, versus maybe pre-COVID, they were going to just a bunch of events. They didn't have, they weren't thinking much about, what am I going to gain from this, and so on and so forth. But what I'm trying to pinpoint on is the community and the aspect of like how people are becoming more wanting to be involved in communities. Like, as we're just talking about these wildfires that happen, what's the impact that we're creating? But what has really been the differentiation pre and post COVID with events?
Well, I mean, it's hard to really put a COVID kind of changed everything in our landscape. I
Yep.
mean, candidly, we had to almost shutter our doors because live events, can't have a lot of people in one small crowded space when
Exactly.
COVID is on the loose. So, it was really a time for us, certainly, and for Pinpoint to think about what's truly, truly important, especially as we're marketing. And I was like, if we make it through, and that was
Yeah.
actually a very big question mark for the company. Small businesses obviously were hit incredibly hard. But I really wanted to make sure that we were going to meet the moment of what happens on the other side of
Hmm.
this. And I think there have been a lot of research that people are lonelier than ever now in the post pandemic kind of landscape. More people are on their phones, more people are looking at doom scrolling. And I'm talking even just like younger generations.
Yeah.
And I think the number one thing that we are working towards are making sure that the events that we have are deep connection points. It's not just marketing, it's not just high gloss. It's let's bring people together and have real conversations. Let's ask a lot of questions. Let's make sure that we're giving opportunity for attendees to meet each other. It's less talking at and more like real engagement, being thoughtful about the seating arrangements even, and making sure that we've done enough research on the people in the room to say, hey, you know what, this person actually would really get along with this person, and making sure that not only have they taken a strong message from our companies, but also maybe they've made a couple of connections that they can take with them too.
Yeah.
So I
No.
think that's one thing that we definitely are seeing is, and not just our company, I think you'll see across event agencies and across marketing in general, connection is like the number one thing that people need.
Yeah. And it may even come down to, obviously there's a big difference between an e-commerce company, B2B companies and so on and so forth from a marketing standpoint. But I think even as granular as e-commerce, people are still looking for that connection.
1,000%.
Yeah. How do I
Yes.
resonate with that brand? What is that brand gonna, how do I become that brand in essence, right? Versus it's just like a one-stop shop purchase and then move on type thing. So, I mean, it is even as
Definitely.
granular as that.
And certainly we're seeing with all of our clients that the word sentiment is
Hmm.
definitely coming up more and more and more, and making sure that it's not just selling a message, but that the overall sentiment of the brand is being kind of pushed in the direction of, being known as a company that's supportive to
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I love that because I think even, just as a marketer or, regardless what industry you're in, you've attended a ton of events, I'm sure, like in any industry, any position that you're in a company. And a lot of these things are like, oh, my company is sending me here. I'm going to go and meet as many people as possible. I'm going to attend some of the, the sidebar conversations in the different rooms and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, what did you really take out of it other than walking 35,000 steps a day, being exhausted, making it home? But I love that you pull out like what is the post, what is the after effect, and I think a lot of events miss that.
I think that's also been a lot of fun in our creative brainstorming on like what's the actual physical post message. It's like, people deal with a lot of the invitations and the lead ups, and then what's the after. And
Yeah.
I think some of the comms, even in recaps and making sure that we're getting real feedback from people and kind of sending it back to them, that's always a part of our strategy
Yeah.
now in a
Yeah.
way that wasn't before.
So your target market is enterprise, or do you work with some of the smaller folks, smaller
We
businesses?
we work with everyone, but I
Okay.
think the most important thing is we typically work within enterprise companies within their public affairs offices
Yeah.
slash their foundation
Yeah.
work. So for us, it really is important that, at least it's important to me, which thus is important to the company. I
Yeah.
think that whatever we do has impact in some way or another. So even, with some of the larger companies we work for, we're usually doing something that is, working with students, veterans, small businesses, and grants.
Yeah, I like it. You do really think about the triple bottom line as you focus on
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So now, without giving away your secret sauce, obviously, walk us a mile in your shoes in terms of, when you've started to work with a client, you're about to build out, X event. What are the typical steps that happen, within that process for you guys?
Well, certainly with every client, it's different, right? With clients that we already have, there's already kind of a bit of a shorthand where we know their style and we know what they're looking for by just getting a brief. But with new clients, typically we do an input session, and that's pretty long. It's like an hour to 2 hours of us just kind of getting a deep dive into, number one, why are they having an event?
Yep.
Um, have they done events before? What have they liked? What haven't they liked? What's the message that we're sharing? When's the date? What's your budget? All the
Yeah.
things that that
Yeah.
we need to know, but we get all of that up front. Then we typically will go back into our little warehouse. We'll do a work back plan. We'll put together just some mood boards and like decks of just look, feel, vibe, but more than that, run of show. So we'll like be really, really thoughtful from the jump on, this is what a potential run of show looks like from minute to minute. So this is who we think would make sense on a panel. This is who we think would make sense as a keynote speaker. If we're working with a politician of any kind, we're like, this person, is a part of this kind of bill, and this makes sense for your message because. So we come up with the strategy behind maybe some of the reasons why we're in a place. We do a pitch deck. We'll pitch a piece of business. We do rounds of feedback. And then we're really off to the races. So, but obviously getting in those first 2 hours, the reasons why they're hosting the event, and kind of what are they hoping at the end of the event? What do they want the people who are leaving to feel?
Mm-hmm.
That's important for us as we're crafting any kind of creative.
Yeah. Do you find a lot of the times when you do work with some of these clients and you ask them, like, why are they creating the event? Like, they actually think that they know why, but then through the process of you working with them, they are like, well, wow, we didn't really know why we were starting this. And now we have a full blown concept as to why.
Definitely. And I think, here's the thing, and this, I'm sure, through your enterprise work, it's events for people that are hosting them. That's not their full-time job.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they maybe have like 10% of their energy to focus on actually building a quote event. They're really on the marketing side. And we're kind of I think of us as like the fuel behind marketing, right? We're a spoke of the wheel. And like, so I think typically
a spoke of the wheel, but the spoke that keeps the wheel moving, in my humble opinion.
Well, thank you for saying that. I like to think that events really like keep the drum beat going.
Yeah.
So you have like the launch, but the events can actually further the message for sure.
100%. Yeah.
But my point is, I don't think it's not really their job to know. It's our job. And that's why ideally you hire an agency who's thoughtful and who's thinking as you, which is, if we're kind of occupying the shoes of our clients and we know what they're trying to say, it's really our job to kind of prove why are we doing an event to begin with?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I completely agree. What have you found that has been the gap in, well, obviously you've built the company, you found that there was a gap in event space, but as you're working with clients, like, day in and day out and putting on these different events for them, what is some of the things that come up that are a through line and connection to most of these companies that are missing that you've really kind of coined in terms of a process to support these clients? And maybe there isn't, but I'm almost positive there is, in terms of something that's missing that you've kind of solved for in addition.
I think that what we do the most is always draw back to the local community where we're going. I'd say that's the thing that's been missing. You have this large macro message, and you are going to, the beauty of Pinpoint, and kind of why we got the name, which now I don't know if we'd choose this name again, but like
Yeah.
we're here now. It's because we've been to every single state in the country.
Yeah.
We operate in all 50 states, but name any city in America and we've probably been there.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it's how do we bring the message to not just the New Yorks, the Miamis, the LAs, the Chicagos? How do we make this message, this massive message, resonate in Omaha, in, I don't know, Sioux Falls, South Dakota? Like,
Yeah.
how are we bringing the message back? And I think also for an event company to be kind of the thing that we say over and over and over again is, does the event actually serve the message? Is what we're doing and building out, does this all go in the circle that we need it to go? And I think that's often where I just think smaller agencies have the capacity to do that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I like that. And, I like that you bring up, how are we going to bring this to Oklahoma, or, some of the other state that you mentioned that's slipping my mind now. But it's even like, if we think about, because you've lived in Miami, right? It's like, if we were to have an event in Coconut Grove versus in Hialeah, like, it's a completely different audience, right?
1,000%.
Yeah. And I think that, yes, if there's an enterprise company that is putting on an event in a location, what's the reason for that location? How are we going to make people, yes, people are going to be flying in, but, what is the build out around that?
Well, and I think it's also, just because you're an enormous company, just because you're an enterprise company, doesn't mean that you shouldn't understand where you're going.
Yeah.
What's our catering even? Something so simple, right? Like, there is no one size fits all for an event. Even if you think that you're touring something, your tour has to skew to where you are. Otherwise, I think that goes back to just the authenticity and the understanding of, why you are where you are.
Yeah.
Because certainly there's a reason why we're there.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. I mean, it's not like you're just, putting on an event in Arizona. It's like, why Arizona versus California versus New York and so on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about AI and events. What are you seeing that is shifting from bringing AI into events, and how are you guys using it, either from the back end, or, from the ongoing, as events are taking place and happening, and then, post? I mean, obviously this could be organizational, this could be like during, and so on and so forth, but, how is it helping you guys kind of, move through things a lot more speed and agility to market?
I mean, we're still kind of learning how to use this best, I'll be honest.
Yes.
We
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, we're definitely using it kind of from a work function. We use a lot of like the note-taking tools. It helps us organize our outlines. Using it more as kind of like let's do a brain dump and then organize it. That's been super, super helpful.
Love that.
From a creative perspective, I'm really hesitant to use AI.
Agreed.
However, yesterday I was doing a mood board for a client and I had an idea, but I couldn't find the image. So I used AI to say, this is exactly what I have in my brain. Can you do a mock? And it did.
Yeah.
So it's more, as long as the idea is coming from us and it's going into, a model, I feel better than, I think there's a lot of room here for things to start looking the same.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, I don't know. I'm skeptical. I don't want to say skeptical, because I think AI actually is like, I mean, it's limitless in terms of what I think it can do.
Yeah. We're just not there yet.
And I just think I feel, and I've said to my team, we have to just be a little bit careful about using the creative side of it, because I think we're still the engine and need to be, and not the other way around.
Yeah, no, I love that you say that. I mean, I was at an event recently, and it's just, how do you use it consciously, from the standpoint of like, there's always going to be a human behind it right now supporting that process. And, even, with the written word of people just going in and saying, do this for me, the straight copy paste isn't what you want to be doing, because other people are putting in stuff there and you're just generating from what somebody else has probably generated a week or 2 weeks or a month ago.
I'll tell you though, where it has been helpful is if I have to write really tricky emails to clients
Yeah.
and I'm hot or I'm feeling really pissed off
You're
about
like, make me
something.
sound nicer.
Could you, I literally will dump it into a chat GPT and say what I mean and be like, could you make this sound?
More
Yeah, like
diplomatic.
a little diplomatic, a little more gracious, less
Yeah.
annoyed.
I've done that before. I've done
Yeah,
that before. Yeah.
that's very useful.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about what has been. I like that we talked about the wildfire event that's taking place because I think that, there's events that you put on for a purpose of business, transactional. There's events that you put on that are from an impact standpoint. What do you feel has been either I think exciting and challenging kind of fall into the same bucket. So tell us an event that has been both challenging and exciting, in terms of putting on, because a lot of people think that everything moves smooth, everything is, happening, it's wonderful, but there's road bumps that you hit. And I love that you say that this event canceled and got pushed 2 weeks out because now you feel that it's going to be 1,000 times more successful versus if you were to put it on and just say, let's just get it out. And, as marketers, there's always this 80 to 100% rule where it's like, get it out at 80%. That's different, right? But yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about, an exciting and challenging project that really came to life.
Sure. So I guess this was last year. This is another one where we as a small company, but also because my background is really in public affairs events, we have to move really, really quickly. So typically if we have a politician who signed on, we don't know the dates that they can do it before, like 10 days before an event.
Yeah.
But we had a really incredible opportunity. Google.org was launching a huge mental health awareness initiative. And it was a partnership with Donors Choose. It was a partnership, so that was including like the Jed Foundation, but also Rare Impact, which was Selena Gomez's foundation. And we had basically 10 days to say, this is where we're hosting the event. This is how we're going to say and share kind of an actual activity with students to say, we really care. This is why we care. And have an activity that actually allowed them to kind of open up. We had to do this in such a short period of time. We had to create a set that was both looked produced, but not too produced. And I'm sure you know the balance, while also kind of creating like a really nice green room for Selena Gomez because she's coming. We had a lot of run of show challenges because we had so many people who wanted to be a part of this event. So we had, national level politicians with state elected officials with a celebrity, some of which, they can't really interact in a real way. So making sure we had separation while also being connected, highlighting a teacher who really changed the lives of her students. She's absolutely incredible and has created this really open space for her kids, but highlighting her. So there were a lot of messages that had to be shared, and there were a lot of challenges in just the number of people that we had to kind of appease to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it wound up being just definitely one of the most special events that we've done.
Yeah. How wonderful.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how, because I do want to take a step back into the community aspect of things, because I think from a macro level, as the company putting it on to support, a community happening post the event, there's probably also inspiration to pull from that from companies that are coming either visiting or having booths and stands and whatever at these events, or maybe it's just, roundtable discussion or it's an open forum. But how do those communities kind of spawn off from the macro level? And then do you support any, communities happening from more of a micro level within like, the feet on the ground and people that are like attending versus maybe they want to, spawn off into their own community versus, join the larger kind of community from like a Google or so on and so forth?
It's an interesting question, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding what you're asking.
Yes.
So what you're asking me kind of whether or not we are ever involved in kind of from the larger events.
Yes.
How do we kind of drill having the thing continue on with the communities where we go?
Yes, exactly.
So in essence, yes, we do that.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on the kind of event and whether or not that makes sense. But we did, for example, we did a grant launch with Feeding America and Google.org where it was another huge grant launch for, I guess this was last fall. It was a
Yeah.
program called Food for All this fall.
Yeah.
And we were able to go and spotlight 7 different food banks, all with very, very different needs, wants, etc. And then we were able to keep in touch with them after the fact, and they hosted their own events. Pittsburgh Food Bank was one of our food banks that we retained,
Great.
and we did a lot of work with them to
Yeah.
say they loved what we did for just amplifying a message. And then we kind of they were actually launching. They had new refrigeration systems that were coming in. They just expanded their footprint by like quite a bit now. Like for all of the broader Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, they now can do so much more fresh food.
Yeah.
So they wanted a press launch. So we were to kind of work with them and strategize. Same in Mesa, Arizona. So in essence, yes. I think the desire is events are intimidating for people. And like I said before, a lot of people don't have the capacity or the time. So I think anyone who's interested, we're always like happy to work with. But yeah, that's a good example of one.
Yeah, no, I like that because I think to your point, it's important for these events to continue to have legs after.
Yes.
And I think if a company can control the majority of the main kind of community that's happening because it has a larger impact, it's great. But obviously, sometimes communities can happen within the community that they kind of spawn off and kind of go off on their own and kind of develop from events, which I think is also great.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you think about leveraging the power of, what really makes a difference between a good event and a great event?
I mean, I really think thoughtfulness from start to finish is really what makes the difference between a good event and a great event. I think it is everything from when people are walking in, what are they seeing? How's your line management and control? Making sure that we're aware of the look and feel of the venue. I think it's thoughtful swag. I think it's, signage that actually, gives a message and people can take it. I think it's, like I said, the thoughtful interaction between attendees themselves. I think it's thoughtful programming where we know that folks will actually be interested in hearing it. It's not just kind of an announcement. It's more, substantive messaging that we know the folks in the room are actually interested in hearing. I think it's everything from making sure your catering is where the folks would want to eat it.
Yeah.
It's thoughtful seating that people are comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know. The beauty of events and why I like it so much, why it tickles my brain so much, is there's about 1,000 things that you think about when you're hosting it, when you're planning an event. Are you bringing in local bands and what do they sound like? And, for us anyway, one of our biggest ethos, points is hiring locally where we are. So
I love that.
Also making sure that we're kind of contributing ourselves to the community and the economy of whatever state we're in.
Yeah. Hiring like food and photographers and all of that to kind of
also labor.
Yeah.
Also
yeah.
photographers also.
That's a community in and of itself,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. In the ecosphere, obviously, you're part of the marketing, landscape. And there are so many different channels and, obviously enterprise, has a budget that can really, push out to multiple different channels, right? But it may not be necessarily the right fit for them to be doing an event, within whatever product, service, or something that they're trying to launch. How do you kind of advise and guide when and where and how events should be taking place within that marketing ecosphere?
I think you said it earlier where a really great position for events to be is the amplification of a message. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, content has to come from somewhere. And events, I think, are a great place for you to capture content that then you push out to your social media, to your press, to your more traditional press. So I'd say, like, for us, anytime there's an announcement, I think there should be an event. Anytime there is a product launch, I think there should be an event.
Yeah.
I think anytime there's anything that you want to get in the news, an event is really where you, even if it's just a press conference, I
Yeah.
think of everything as an event, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but to me, there needs to be a there.
Yeah.
And I think the event is the there.
Yeah. And I think when people think about events, they think, oh, mass, like, there's going to be 20,000 people bust in on, like, over 3 days and so on and so forth. But what we fail to recognize sometimes is that an event can happen within the back room of a restaurant. It could be 30 people. It could be very specialized. Talk to us a little bit more about the differences between these events, because, when you think events, you think, oh, I don't have the budget. It's going to cost X amount of money. And then I have to get a room at a hotel and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I would say for us, it's rare that we're doing events for 20,000 people.
Yeah.
It is far more likely we're doing an event for 100 people. That's
Love
just the
it.
type of events that we do.
Yeah.
We're planning an event actually for a client right now that's going to wind up being 30 people in a restaurant in New York. And it's all C-suite level folks who the entire purpose of the event is just for them to connect.
Yeah.
It's just to have a nice dinner. It's just so that these two folks can have like a real touch point with these individuals over the course of 3 hours, to actually hear kind of the concerns from their customers, to get, real meaningful conversation. And that's an event.
Yeah. In the world of events, I mean, would that necessarily be categorized as like boutique events versus, I mean, how do you guys name these different types of events?
I think that I don't name them different things.
Yeah.
I think an event is an event,
Yeah. No matter the
minimally,
size.
no matter the size. I
Yeah.
mean, I think folks would look at us and probably call us a boutique agency.
Yeah.
I don't think that. We're an event production company, and
Yeah.
kind of regardless of size, an event is an event
Yeah,
to
no,
me.
I completely agree with you, because like I said, a lot of people have the misconception that it can be, more personalized, more direct, together.
Now,
But
obviously, events have different names, right? So a
yes.
convention
Yes.
is different than a grassroots tour.
Yes. Yes.
So like there are different styles of events, but
Yes.
an event.
Yes. And you guys focus more on which portion of that within the scale of all these events?
I would say probably 60% of our business is more on the smaller kind of grassroots scale,
Yeah.
press conferences, um, launches, kind of like announcements,
Yes.
grant
Yes.
launches. That's probably about 60% of our business.
Yeah.
With the other 40 being larger sales meetings that, if a company is hosting, um, we just did a conference in New York City that was 3,000 people. So I'd call us like on the smaller convention range would be another 40% of what we do.
Yeah. What do you think is next for events within your space?
I mean, this feels like a self-serving thing to say because it's what we do already.
Yeah.
But considering I have a lot of contacts and friends who are in other agencies, much larger agencies in New York, and everyone's kind of focused on and pointing towards the same thing, and that's high-level connection events. That's really where I think it all is.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe less large scale, high gloss,
Yes.
more deep down, dirty, connective.
Yeah.
I
like that.
I think that's where we're going.
Before I let you go, this has been an amazing, deep dive into all things that you do for Pinpoint, and congratulations on the 10 years, and keep trucking forward. What 3 pieces of advice do you have for any company thinking about wanting to put, events within their marketing channel?
I think the number one thing that I would say is, do you know why you're doing it?
Going back to the why always.
Before you're approaching any event company, do you have an understanding of what it is that you're hoping to achieve? Number 2, I would say build your budget out first so that the type of, number 1, the type of agency that you want to go for, but also know what's important to you. Like what are the top things that you need to have at an event? 3 pieces of advice for a client. I would say, I think also just be wary of the transparency of your agencies. I think always go for the agencies who tell you exactly what they see for you and aren't just giving you,
the scope of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, because it goes back to really delivering, 150% versus just signing on somebody at that point. Yeah. And it's a match. It's a match between the client and the company that they're working with.
Well, and ideally, like an agency is meant, I think, to be kind of a partner.
Yes, it has to be.
In the best relationship that an agency can be, it's a partner. So, you know, that means you should probably be a partner.
Yes, totally. I mean, it's definitely a partnership. Otherwise, it's not going to gel. I mean, you guys are moving step by step within the process of getting this event into place. I mean, what is the duration typically for, something like this to be put on? A couple of weeks, months,
Well, it, really,
maybe?
it depends on the event. The event that I'm doing right now will be a month
Yeah.
lead, like the one I just mentioned, the 30-person event.
Yeah.
We have programs that have been, we had about 9 months to build a big kind of convention booth that will be launching in September.
Yeah.
I'd say for us, it's anywhere between about 6-9 months to literally a week. It
Yeah.
really depends.
Yeah. So that partnership is well worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for your time and all the good nuggets here. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you back on.
Oh, I would love that. And I can't wait to read your book when it comes
Thank
out.
you.
Yeah, of course.